Somewhere in a city you may never visit, there is a type of craftsman who specializes in restoring old clocks, not the decorative kind that sit on mantels for appearance, the real ones, the ones with hundreds of tiny interlocking pieces that have to be disassembled completely before they can be understood, before the broken part can finally be identified, held up to the light, and seen for exactly what it is. That is what is happening to your situation right now, Virgo. Every gear, every spring, every hidden mechanism that was turning quietly underneath what you thought you were looking at, it is all coming apart in the most necessary way. Not to destroy the thing, to finally show you exactly how it was built, who built it, and why certain pieces were never quite right from the very beginning. Something is coming through that is going to expose the full architecture of this story, where it actually started, what was actually happening in the rooms you were not allowed into, and how, with that full picture finally in your hands, everything about the ending is going to make a different kind of sense than it did before. But before we go there, I want to take a real moment with the people who keep showing up for this space. You know who you are. The ones who leave comments that stop me mid-scroll because of how honest they are. The ones who share these videos without being asked because something landed and you wanted someone else to feel it too. The ones who have been here long enough to notice when the energy of a reading is different, sharper, more specific than usual. I read what you write. I carry it into the next reading without realizing it sometimes. You shape this work more than you know, and I am genuinely grateful for every single one of you. If you are new here today, welcome into this. No explanation needed, no catching up required. You are exactly on time. Now let us get into what the energy is actually showing, because this one has a very particular quality to it, and I want to handle it with the precision it deserves. There is a specific feeling that comes when you realize a story was never what it appeared to be from where you were standing inside of it. It is not quite anger, though anger might visit. It is not quite grief, though grief has probably already been through. It is something more like the particular sobriety of a person who has just walked out of a darkened theater into full afternoon daylight. That moment of adjustment, that blinking recalibration as your eyes learn to process a brightness that was always there, that never stopped being there, that you simply could not access from inside the dark. That is the quality of what is moving toward you, Virgo. A text, a message, something written, something documented, something that exists in black and white in a way that cannot be reframed or softened by someone's tone of voice or their ability to look you in the eye and perform sincerity. Words on a screen. Receipts in the most literal or figurative sense of that word. Something that was said, something that was planned, something that was decided, and the record of it is about to find its way to you. And when it does, it is going to answer questions you have been carrying quietly for longer than you have probably admitted to yourself. I want to talk about the beginning, because the text that is coming, whatever specific form it takes, is going to reframe the beginning for you. And that is actually the most disorienting part of an exposure like this. Not the betrayal itself, if that is what it is, not the confirmation of a suspicion, but the sudden retroactive rewriting of a chapter you thought you had already understood. You are going to look back at how this started, at the specific circumstances, the timing, the way certain things were presented to you, the things that were said early on that felt like foundation, that felt like the real material of something genuine, and you are going to see them differently. Some of what you received at the beginning was constructed, not all of it, perhaps. Energy does not lie completely, and whatever real thread existed between you and this situation or this person, that thread was real on some level. But the frame around it, the context, the story that was being told to position things in a particular way so that you would respond in a particular way. That was architecture, Virgo, deliberate architecture. And the blueprint is about to be delivered directly to you. I want to pause here because I am sensing something in the energy that I think needs to be named carefully. There is going to be a temptation when this arrives to turn the exposure primarily outward, to focus almost entirely on what the other person did, what they hid, what they orchestrated, what their intentions actually were versus what they presented. And that is a natural and human response to being misled. The mind goes toward the source of the deception almost instinctively. But the most powerful thing you can do with what is coming, and I mean powerful in the truest sense, not in the social media sense, not in the telling everyone sense, is to turn a portion of that clarity inward, not in self-blame. That is not what I am describing, and I want to be very precise about that distinction. But in genuine curiosity about what this beginning actually activated in you, what need it spoke to, what part of you it found and made an agreement with before your discernment could catch up. Because that part of you, that particular frequency that this situation or person was able to tune into, that is the part of you that is doing the most important growing right now. The exposure coming from outside is one kind of revelation. The self-knowledge available inside of this moment is another kind entirely. And the second kind is the one that changes your next chapter most fundamentally. Let me describe what I see when I look at the energy around you and this unfolding, because there is a texture to it that is specific, and I think you will recognize it when I name it. It feels like the moment in a very long and complicated piece of music when the key finally changes. You have been in a particular key for a while now. A key that required a certain kind of listening, a certain tolerance for tension and unresolved notes, a certain willingness to stay in the dissonance and trust that it was leading somewhere. And there were moments, many of them, where the dissonance was so sustained that you wondered whether resolution was actually coming or whether you had simply misread the piece entirely. The key is changing, Virgo. Not because you forced it, not because you finally said the right thing or did the right thing or reached some threshold of patience that unlocked the next movement, but because the music itself has arrived at the place where the change was always written. It was in the composition from the beginning. You just could not hear where it was going while you were still inside the earlier movements. The text coming is the key change. It resolves something, even if the resolution is uncomfortable. Even if what it resolves is the question of whether something was ever truly what it claimed to be, resolution is still resolution. And after a long time in unresolved tension, even a difficult resolution brings a particular kind of relief. Now, I want to speak very directly to the ones who have had a feeling about this situation for a long time. Not a paranoid feeling, not anxiety manufacturing suspicion. I mean that deep, bodily, almost inconvenient knowing that something about the story you were being given did not quite add up. The feeling you had at 2 in the morning when you were being honest with yourself in the way we can only really be honest when the performance of daily life has gone quiet. The feeling you talked yourself out of in the daylight because you did not want to be the kind of person who assumes the worst, who cannot trust, who sees problems where there are none. Your instincts were not wrong. They were not wrong then, and the evidence of that is on its way to you now in a form concrete enough that you will not be able to talk yourself out of it this time. There is something both vindicating and painful about this kind of confirmation. Vindicating because you were not crazy, because your nervous system was reading something real, because the part of you that kept raising its hand quietly in the back of the room was paying attention to something that mattered. And painful because being right about this particular thing means something you hoped was not true actually was. I want to hold both of those things at once rather than rush past either of them, because you deserve the vindication fully. And you are also allowed to grieve the version of the story that you preferred, even knowing it was not entirely accurate. Both of those things can be true at the same time. Something I find genuinely fascinating about this energy right now is where it is pointing in terms of your own evolution, Virgo, because this is not just a story about someone else's choices and what those choices cost you. This is a story about the education of your perception. Think about what a master glassblower has to learn before they can be trusted with the most delicate and valuable materials. They have to make mistakes first. They have to overheat things. They have to watch pieces collapse because they moved too quickly or held on too long or misjudged the temperature of something that looked one way from the outside while being something completely different on the inside. The mistakes are not failures in the way we typically use that word. They are information, irreplaceable, embodied, non-transferable information that cannot be learned from a book or someone else's experience. It has to move through your own hands. It has to cost something. What this situation cost you is real. I am not going to minimize that by wrapping it too quickly in meaning. The cost was real and it was not nothing. But what it has deposited in you in terms of perceptive ability, in terms of your capacity to read the temperature of things, to sense the gap between presentation and reality, to trust the quiet alarms that your intuition sounds before your rational mind has caught up. That deposit is extraordinary and it is permanent. Nobody can take that from you. You are not the same reader of situations that you were when this began, not remotely. Let me talk about the ending now, because the title of this reading holds both sides, and I think the ending deserves as much attention as the exposure, game over. Those words carry a particular energy when you sit with them. There is finality in them. There is also, if you listen carefully, a kind of liberation, because game over means the game is done. It means the rules of engagement that governed a particular dynamic, the ones that perhaps required you to play a role you never fully agreed to, the ones that kept you in a state of uncertain maneuvering, wondering what was real and what was performance. Those rules no longer apply. When a game ends, you get to stand up from the table. You get to walk away from the board. You get to exist outside of the logic of that particular contest and remember that you are a full human being with a full life that was never actually contained within those rules to begin with. The ending that is coming for you is not a loss, even if it feels like one on the surface, even if the text that arrives carries information that stings. Even if the full picture of how this started makes you wish you had seen it sooner, You are not losing something that was serving you. You are being released from something that was costing you. There is an enormous difference between those two experiences, even when they can look similar from the outside. I am curious about something, and I want to ask you directly. In the quiet moments, the ones between obligations, between the noise and the movement of daily life, have you felt something shifting in the past little while? Something that did not come with an explanation. A kind of loosening in a place that had been held tight for so long that the tightness had started to feel normal? Because that loosening, if you have felt it, is not random. It is the energetic precursor to what is coming. It is your system beginning to adjust before the external event gives it a reason to. The body knows things before the mind is ready to acknowledge them, and yours has been knowing something about this situation for a while now. Tell me in the comments if any of this is landing in a specific way. If there is a particular piece of what I am describing that feels like it has your name written on it, I genuinely want to know where you are in this. There is one more layer to this that I want to bring in before we close, and it is perhaps the most important one. The text coming is not the point. I know that sounds strange given everything we have just moved through, but hear me out on this. The text is the mechanism, the vehicle, the particular form that the universe has chosen to use to deliver a piece of information to you at a time when you are equipped to do something meaningful with it. The text is the how, but the what, the actual substance of what this moment represents in your larger story, that is something much bigger than a single message on a screen. This is a threshold. On one side of it is everything that has been the confusion, the questions, the half-truths, the dynamic that required you to operate with incomplete information, the version of yourself that was navigating in the fog of not quite knowing. On the other side is something cleaner. Not easier necessarily, not without its own complexity, but cleaner in the specific sense that matters most right now. Clarity. Full, uncomfortable, liberating, unambiguous clarity about what this was, who was involved, what their intentions carried from the very start, and therefore what your next chapter is actually free to look like now that this one is genuinely, completely, irrevocably closing. Game over does not mean your story is over, Virgo. It means this particular game with these particular rules, with this particular opponent who was never playing fair, is finished. And you, the person who kept showing up with genuine intention in the middle of something that was never quite as genuine as it appeared, you get to walk out of that game and into something that is built on real ground. Real ground, Virgo. After everything you have been standing on, that is going to feel like arriving somewhere you forgot you were allowed to go. Take a breath with that. Let it settle into the parts of you that have been waiting the longest. You are not at the end of something good. You are at the beginning of something true. And there is nothing more valuable than that.